Hello, this is me recording my course project for social psychology in semester spring 2022. So I'll get to um, my slideshow, pull that up. Okay. So the name of my project is called Altruism and Capitalism. My name's Trenton Peters, um, and here's the information about my project. So the problem I chose was that altruism is notably low in the United States, and in some famous cases, someone has been in dire need of help, and capable bystanders have hailed to help. I'm going to claim that capitalism plays a part in this, and combating capitalism also combats this lack of altruism. So, what is altruism? Altruism, as defined in the social psychology literature, is the motivation to help another person without any regard for selfish benefit. What is capitalism? This isn't a social psychology definition, but it is a definition indeed. It is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. What is social exchange theory? We'll need this later on in the presentation. So, according to social exchange theory, a person will weigh the cost of a social interaction, a negative outcome, against the reward of that social interaction or positive outcome. These costs and rewards can be material like money, time, or service. You can see how these terms are going to be related, capitalism and social exchange theory, in my presentation a little bit. Okay, so why is this bad? Why is altruism being low in the U.S. bad? It's a bad thing. It's bad because people are unnecessarily victimized. So, nodding back to the beginning earlier in the presentation, there are some famous examples where someone has been in dire need of help, and capable bystanders have failed to help. One of those cases was of Kitty Genovese. On March 27, 1964, the New York Times ran an article titled 37 Who Saw Murder Didn't Call the Police, alleging that multiple neighbors heard or witnessed this person's murder but did nothing to help her while she was raped, robbed, and killed. There's been extensive debunking efforts since that article ran, but scenarios where someone needs help but does not receive it are not uncommon. This is just sort of like a quintessential case of a lack of altruism in the U.S. So this problem of insufficient altruism exists because, according to social exchange theory, a person will weigh the cost of a social interaction against the reward of that social interaction. A question we can ask is, what determines what counts as a reward and what counts as a cost? Uh, the answer, in part, is our cultural norms, and social psychology attempts to study those norms. And so, following this question of why does this problem exist in a social psychological uh, through a lens of social psychology, uh, we can ask what kind of culture do we live in that fosters a lack of altruism, and the United States is what's sometimes considered a late capitalist system. Late stage capitalism is characterized by a new mix of high tech advances, the concentration of speculative financial capital, post Fordism, and a growing income inequality. So, how does our culture shape our motivations? Hein, in 2001, showed that there are motivational differences between Japanese and American students when confronted with failure. From this, we can gather that culture shapes, at least in part, what motivates us. So, what shapes our motivations? Since the United States is different than other cultures. Given that our culture is highly profit oriented, we tend to prioritize our actions with respect to profit more often than other cultures. This leads to a marked decrease in the perceived importance of the well being of others. So, it's like we care more than other cultures about profit, and we care less because of that. We care less about the importance of well being of others. So, nodding back to social exchange theory, if we want to increase instances of altruism, we may look to social psychological theories for answers. And according to this theory, social exchange theory, a person will weigh the cost of a social interaction against the reward of that social interaction. What counts as a reward in our society is skewed towards financial gain, again. But if we shift our priorities more towards general well being, especially of others, we can become a more altruistic society. So, how can we shift our priorities? One way we can shift our priorities is that we can consciously deliberate about what values and priorities we enact in the world. This is the C in the ABCs of social psychology: cognition. We can optimistically cognize ourselves into a more altruistic and less profit oriented society. Of course, cognition is only minimally powerful without it affecting behavior or affect, the other parts of the ABCs of social psychology. So we can make a conscious effort to influence our attitudes and behavior in a way that prioritizes altruism rather than profit and efficiency. So what I'm saying here is that we don't just want to sit around and think about uh, what's more important to us, altruism or profit. We we will come to the realization that profit's only valuable, or so I argue, insofar that it benefits people, yourself or others. And uh, and in after you come to the cognition that we should be more altruistic, you can use your cognition to influence behavior and affect. Say, how should I act in a way that promotes altruism? How can I act in a way, or how can I alter my attitudes in a way that diminishes my uh, evaluation or prioritization of profit? And that will in turn, again, cognition influences behavior and affect. So, conclusion: the problem that I brought up in my presentation is that we're not altruistic enough. Case in point, Kitty Genovese. This is in part because of our profit centered culture. The solution that I chose to go about addressing the problem is deliberation about what values we choose to live by. And I argue this will in turn affect our attitudes and behaviors and optimistically lead us to be more altruistic. Thank you.